Hi, everyone from the Great White North. I'm still here, and things are really starting to heat up in the political realm in Canada. I guess you guys know all about the tariffs and Trump's ambition to put economic tariffs on Canada. And I do believe that is going to cause economic strain in Canada. And I think the whole purpose of it is to collapse the central bank because we know the Britain invasion and the War of 1812 going down, trying to get control of the United States from the Patriots. This is still in our balancing of all that, right? So I do think Trump is trying to basically get rid of the central banks in general. And I think this is all part of the whole movement. Oh, and of course, what's going on with the LA fires. I just found this video today because I've been following it a bit. And Cat Williams, if you haven't, been following him for years, he kind of had predicted Diddy's scandal coming out. And he's also talking about now, and there's also a government official in this video talking about how um, the evidence of all the P. Diddy list was happened to be the houses that went down, right? So she worked for Bush, the lady that was talking in this video. So go and watch this video. I think it's very educational. And they talk about, really it's there's explosions happening in tunnels and, lots of stuff going on. So it's, it sounds like a conspiracy, but I really don't think it is in the end. I think it's all perfect timing. And even one of the victims had been talking about most likely you'll see explosions and fires in the near future. And of course it's happened. So it's crazy stuff going around. So this is what Trump posted on Truth Social. If you don't keep up with his posts, I always kind of look in on his posts every day. And I found this mind-blowing. Okay, so he did this little meme. He's called the Monroe Doctrine. Now, he's stating here in this little square here, I blew it up, in a throwback to James Monroe, 1823, State of Union Address. So this is, about 11 years after the War of 1812, where the Patriots tried to come up and get hold of Canada through Montreal, freeing Montreal from the British. And he's saying here where he outlined the United States' interest in the Western Hemisphere. Excuse me. President-elect Trump yesterday said he wants to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, and said Greenland and the Panama Canal are vitally important to our security. Now, I watched his press conference 2 days before Carter's funeral, and this is why I'm doing this video, basically about why Carter's funeral was on January 9th. Okay, and it's very important because of something that happened in Panama on January 9th. And I'm going to get into that. So this is really, really, this isn't him joking around. This is real stuff being kind of slowly brought out into the public in a kind of comical way, but it's not comical. It's really, this is what's going to go down, okay? Because of really history and how it kind of got taken off track and ended up making a bad deal for America. Okay, so you guys have been paying, all you Americans have been paying other countries' bills for decades. And it has to stop, right? So Canada is one of the worst ones, right? We have no military really that's can protect us. We rely on US military. So the British relied on the US military. And this was all part of this Monroe Doctrine about how the British really weren't supposed to be on this continent doing anything. Okay, if you go into the history of it. Now he's saying it's our land. Now he's gone up to Greenland. His son went up there. Don Jr. went up there, and the residents of Greenland are all wearing MAGA hats and quite excited about it. And Denmark is kind of not so happy about it, but he's going to put tariffs on Denmark. And that was in the news today, and they're very upset because, they've made over, I don't know, was it 15 billion in drug sales to US citizens, and he's going to put a tariff on that if they don't allow this to happen. And I do think this all has to do with military. There's already US military there. But here's another thing he puts down here, Gulf, it's not Gulf of Mexico anymore, it's Gulf of America, and it's Panamaga. It's not the Panama Canal anymore, it's Panamaga. Okay, so let's get into really the history, because I think that's what's, the most intriguing thing about all this. So this is what January 9th really is representing. And this is when Carter had his funeral. Monument to the martyrs. Okay, there was I think 22 or 21 people that got killed, and I'll get into all that about what happened in Panama City. It had to do with rising the flag. Now they have here the Pan Am rising of the flag, but it really was on Life magazine. It was actually about um, a high school that was in the zone, in the canal zone. There was basically, I guess, US citizens there working on the canal, and there was a military operation kind of going there, and they had their kids there, the military had their children living there, and they went to high school, but they were always in kind of like a rebellious competition with the native Panama people. Okay, so there was this kind of rivalry going on, and it talks about it all in the history of it. Okay, so yeah, so this is when Carter had his funeral, and I guess you guys looked at that, or it's pretty funny because Trump is quite chatty with Obama. They're laughing and having a good time. It's so funny. I don't know if you watch them walk in, Hillary snubbed Trump. Kamala Harris is actually sitting up here afterwards, and she snubs them, but looks back at Obama. It's hilarious. I find it all like it's not funny because it's at a funeral, but the man was 100 years old. He had a good life. Okay, so here's Obama laughing at Trump's joke. Now they've been doing um, like lip reading competitions online on YouTube, and one of them was it was an AI version of it, and this joke was about Trump saying, "You know what I realized? I realized that Hillary really hasn't gotten over it, and Obama's like laughing about it. I don't know. We don't know what they're saying. There's all different versions of it, but I just find it obviously they're chummy. And Trump talked about this the next day saying, yeah, we look chummy, and yeah, we do get along. So that's really hard for people that are really stronghold MAGA people because, it's really like we think that they hate each other, right? But they don't hate. This is a script, and this is what I keep trying to get through to people. And people, I think sometimes think that I am like pro Elon Musk now and pro like, neurochip in the head kind of thing, but I'm not. What I realize is that they are fulfilling a prophecy of trying to give people the right to freedom and having freedom of speech, which is all part of the Constitution. And this script was going to happen no matter what, no matter who was in charge, because it's like the end times, we have to come to this pivotal point where you decide which path you want to go on. So it doesn't really matter that the script is continually playing. What matters is who's in charge of the script. One faction wanted no freedom of speech, wanted, all our rights taken away from us, taxed to death, poverty, basically, just to make ends meet. And then I do believe, like Trump is saying that we're going into the golden age. The whole AI quantum computing thing, I will mention that at the end of the video. Yes, it is scary. It's I think it's a path for some people, okay, which they have a choice of going on that path. But I still believe that the script is all done this way. If the left, people on the left, extreme left, if they're taking that side and now they see Elon Musk as really evil and that he's like, putting everybody into neurochips and everything, maybe that's to discourage them, people from wanting to take that path now that Elon is with Trump, you see? So you can't always see everything as black and white. So it's just a script. So somebody had put this comment on YouTube, and I just thought it was so funny. Somebody says, does anyone ever get the feeling that we are being played? Both parties are working towards the same goal and playing each other off as good cop, bad cop. Both are working towards a one world government in their own way, making it so that in the end, we have no choice but to accept what is offered. In the meantime, keeping us at each other's throats so we don't see what's really going on. It's happening all over the world. Countries are being bankrupt by their own governments. It's like an orchestrated coup over the people. Yeah, it appears that way, but I do believe there is a silver lining for those that can kind of rise above this, right? And it's how do you rise above it is to always have faith, to always believe that there's a way to your own freedom. Now, Dan Winter says ascension is retaining memory through death. Well, if that's what it is, that's what it is. Now, quantum computing is opening up to other identical worlds. Okay, so maybe that's what's happening with the whole computer thing and Elon Musk. Okay, so this is where I'm kind of at. Like, we don't know what ascension is. We're just being told what it is, right? But you know, do we jump onto another timeline because quantum computers are going to do that? That's what they say they're going to do. So, like, we don't know. So I'm just having fun going through all this because I find it really entertaining. I guess I'm a little bit funny that way, but I find it entertaining. So anyhow, now Trump is saying that he is going to cause International Economic Emergency Powers Act, and he's going to do this onto Canada. Okay, he just calls it. This reporter asked him, "Are you going to, physically go over and take over Canada?" He goes, "No, no, no. It's just economically. We're going to, you know, raise our strength. So, to kind of like get Canada to start paying and looking after the borders and stopping the fentanyl. But when I read this article and it actually said the wording, I was like, oh, okay. So let's go look at the history of international economic emergency power acts, okay? Because this is all very important. And one of the times that it was used a lot was with Jimmy Carter. Okay, so there's a link to that because he said in that press conference, Jimmy Carter, yes, nice man, but he did some things really wrong. Okay, this is what he said. He said the whole Iran hostage taking, it should never gone down that way, and the Panama Canal should never have been sold for $1 after it was U.S. taxpayers that built that. Okay, so there was two things that were done in Jimmy Carter's presidency that Donald Trump does not agree with. Okay, and I do think, the fact that they put his funeral on that day, all tied to the Panama Canal, is really important. Now, the International Emergency Economic Acts, okay, the act was signed by Jimmy Carter in 1977. Now, this act, they started to use it. I wanted to see here. Hang on a second. Yeah, it started in 1977. Oh, yeah, all because of the Iran hostage crisis. Okay, this is what this act was all for. It was for Iran. And Trump said on this press conference on Tuesday before Jimmy Carter's funeral, which was on a Thursday, I believe, last week, he said Iran better release those hostages by the time I get in office or all hell's going to break out. That's what Trump said. Now they are released now. I just saw it in the news. I didn't put a screenshot in, but they are released. And then all of a sudden there's like this peace treaty going on in Israel and Gaza and everything. So something's going on with Iran, right? Now, if you don't know, um, with this International Emergency Economic Powers Act. It was um, it was really done for 44 years. It's been going on. They've been every year they renew it. Okay, to they have sanctions on Iran, right? So these tariffs and sanctions are just ongoing. Okay, but I have a feeling those it wouldn't surprise me if those tariffs and sanctions are going to be removed from Iran soon. I have a feeling. Okay, that's what's going to happen. It's just my hunch. So the Iran hostage crisis. Okay, I don't know. I'm old. I remember this as a kid, my parents watching this. It was horrific. Okay, it really affected people. We only watch 6 o'clock news because that's the only thing that we ever got on TV. And they would bring out the hostages and show them beaten up and abused and they showed it on live TV, right? Well, live TV. It was on TV and it traumatized me. I was a little kid at the time and I was like, oh my God. And my dad was really, concerned about what was going on over there. And he wanted to watch this every night. So there was 53 United States diplomat citizens that were held hostage in Iran from November 4th, 1979 to the release on January 20th, 1981. So you see, Trump said that the hostages have to be released by January 20th. He's coding everything to this, okay? Now, it was all because of the Iranian Revolution. Now, what happened? They overthrew the Shah, okay? And then the Shah um, ended up coming to the United States on Carter's invitation. Okay. But this whole story got leaked out. Okay. And 6 of them escaped. And they kind of turned the whole story in the media all about these 6 of them escaping and getting free. And that's where they took the story. Now, it's funny. It was all done because the story broke in Montreal. I told you everything's all about Montreal. It always goes back to Montreal. Okay. Um, and the CIA drove the 6 diplomats from Switzerland to the U.S. Um, and then they got out. Okay, so but it was because this guy Jean Peltier had released it from the press, the story a little bit too soon, and then that it caused them to have problems getting out. But eventually they got out, and they actually made a movie about it. Okay, so this is where it all happened, and guess who's involved in it? Henry Kissinger and David Rockefeller. It's always David Rockefeller, right? The 9/11 guy, that was on the front page of was it Newsweek, with his watch at 9/11, 33 years prior. Yeah. They're they're the wizards behind the curtain and like the Wizard of Oz, right? So months before the Iranian Revolution on the New Year's Eve of 1977, US President Jimmy Carter further angered anti-Shah Iranians with a televised toast to Pahlava at the state dinner in Tehran, saluting the Shah's character. After the revolution commenced in I'm sorry, February 1979, with the return of Khomeini from exile. The American ambassador, oh, excuse me, American embassy was occupied, and it was staffed, held hostage briefly. Okay, so basically, he invites him to New York because he has lymphoma, to New York hospital, right? And he allows him to come into the United States. So the Iranian people weren't very happy about that. And that's what caused them to go to the embassy and, take all the hostages. So that's what happened there. And yeah, November 4th, 1979, the demonstrations organized by the Iranian Student Union local to Khomeini erupted into an all-out conflict right outside the walled compound housing the U.S. Embassy. That was pretty crazy. So Walter Cronkite every night. Yeah, I remember this. Okay. begins ending each show by saying how many days the hostages had been captive. Like they were just brainwashing people, like how horrific this was. Every night the news ended, oh, the hostages are still there. And then on November 12th, 1979, the executive order 12170 around US 8 billion of they took 8 billion of Iranian assets in the United States and were frozen by the Office of Foreign Asset Control on November 14th. So this what I'm saying is that it wouldn't surprise me if something like this not with hostages, but something like this would happen with Canada to freeze their assets because we're a risk now to the United States, right? Because there's all these students that had these fake visas coming to Canada to enroll in universities here, and then like I think it was 50,000 of them never really showed up, but they ended up going down the States. Like 50,000, like they came over with the school boards, right? So it's all like the government's allowing this to happen and not like following up on it in Canada. So it's like really bad. So and even they left the national Christmas tree was left dark except for the top star. Like it was really how it affected the people in the United States, the impact in the United States of how all this was happening. It was crazy. Okay, so yeah, so he signed it on November 14th, and then the executive order empowered under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act ordered the freezing of the assets. So yeah, so he's mentioning all this at the same time as he's mentioning Canada now, okay? That's what Trump is talking about. And I really think it's going to kind of go down like that in Canada. It was like because of the border security problem. The emergency, which was renewed in 2023 for the 44th time, is the oldest existing state of emergency. The renewal of the emergency state with respect to Iran was equal to continuation of a non-nuclear U.S. sanction against Iran. And I think Clinton even created more uh, harder sanctions on them. But anyhow, yeah, U.S. there's a lot. They're saying in 1980, Iran has demanded that the U.S., European Union, and South Korea return all the frozen assets to Iran. Now, there's things going on in South Korea right now, right? Because the guy that caused court martial, and now he's like being like imprisoned and stuff. So I think they're getting all the frozen assets of Iran and they're giving it back to Iran. And I have a feeling that Trump's doing that because of the oil shortages that's going to happen um, in Canada. With Canada and putting, if the premiers of Canada want to deal, like they're talking about putting tariffs on U.S. now. So if they do that, they want to use oil too to tariff US. And so, but the Alberta premier, who's a woman, Danielle Smith, she doesn't want that. She's like really upset about that. And yeah, so, she went down to visit Trump. So I don't know, if they're going to do it. Most likely they will because they're just going to like plow over her and she's just going to have to fight it in court. But yeah, so I don't know. I think that the US is going to be buying oil from Iran, and she actually mentioned that in a video where she was doing a press conference, and yeah, she's saying, "Well, what's Trump going to do? Buy oil from Iran? Oh yeah, well he might now, okay, because all this is kind of, I think he's trying to free the Iranian people from all the stuff that they've been under for 44 years because of the US. So the remaining 52 hostages were held until January 1981, up to 440 days of captivity. And this is really interesting, this 444. Jay-Z and Beyonce did an album called 444. Mm. It's all to the banks, okay? So, for example, on September 2023, the United States granted Iran access to nearly 6 billion of the frozen assets in South Korea as part of the prisoner exchange. Okay, so they've already done it. Yeah. So yeah, it's not, but maybe there's more going on there too. I don't know. They don't tell us, right? So now, why did I put this here? I guess it was because it was a joint CIA Canadian effort. Yeah, this was all to do with the Operation Eagle Claw. Yeah, Eagle Claw. I saw somebody do a skit about that, a comedian, and he was talking about, oh, the eagle. No, maybe it's the claw. And I think they were taught like kind of like giving a clue to this, the rescue mission. And then they kind of made it all about it was just the rescue mission. They didn't want to talk about how it was all about creating a revolution over there and upsetting everything so they could basically go in and change the banking system. That's what they ended up doing. They ended up changing the banking system. Um, yeah, so they're saying here, um, dedicated list of individuals are frozen. Yeah, so there was like 30 billion, 32 billion. The chief Iranian central bank, they're saying is still frozen. The U.S. government also seized a Manhattan skyscraper belonging to the Iranian government worth over a billion of U.S. dollars. This has all been frozen for 44 years. Bill Clinton imposed some of the toughest sanctions against Iran in March 1995 during the presidency. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. And then, basically what they did, Iran at the time had just a national bank. They weren't part of the central banking system. And so when all this went down, they ended up putting in a central bank in there. Okay, so that's how they did it. That's how they got the central bank in there. And this is all tying to, Hawaii, or what's it called? Howie? Oh, I'm saying that wrong. Remember that when that woman got arrested in Canada because of this Chinese interference with this phone company? This was all tied to Iran. They never mentioned, I don't remember them saying that in the news, but it was under an extradition request by the U.S. state authorities for allegedly putting HSBC Bank at risk for violating U.S. sanctions on Iran. So that's how that all went down. It was all because of Iran again. I think it's all because they're trying to get the oil now. So they basically made a big movie about this called Escape from Iran, the Canadian Caper, because it was all done. Oh, they gave them Canadian fake passports. That's how they got them out. And critically and commercially successful film Argo. Now that's a constellation in the sky. I know I am an astrologer. Getting into politics now, but it's all part of it, right? Because it's really understanding, like, they use the mythology of the sky. The Argo story was blown when the CIA role was kept secret by both the US and Canadian governments at the time. They wanted to ensure that the safety of the remaining hostages, the CIA fully involved, was not revealed until 1997 when records were declassified. Yeah, so it was a big CIA operation. Yeah, but they didn't want us to know back then. They just wanted it to be like a thriller, and then it turned into a movie. So yeah, Alberta, somebody spelled that wrong, Alberta with a T. Premier Danielle Smith comments following the meeting with Donald Trump. She went down to Mar-a-Lago with Kevin O'Leary, who has just bought a large piece of land in Alberta for quantum computing. And yeah, so he's investing a lot of money in cryptocurrency and stuff. And yeah, and she's like, you guys aren't touching my oil. The reason she's so upset about the Canadian government putting tax tariffs on Alberta's oil is, and she mentions this, and she says it really irritates me. And she said this in this interview because Quebec and Ontario blocked her from selling oil to the eastern provinces. They wouldn't let her pipeline go out to eastern Canada or to Quebec. They've blocked all our oil. I have to change my furnace now because I have an oil, and they don't want, the insurance companies don't want to insure it with oil. And they put a mandate by 2030 that no more oil in Quebec. Okay, so she's upset about that because she couldn't sell. So what she ended up doing is that she sold down the states. And so now the Trudeau government wants to put tariffs on it and make taxes on it, make money off her back, why all the people in Alberta lose their jobs because they can't sell the oil, right? So she's like really livid right now, and she kind of like wants to, block this from ever happening. So I totally get that, why because she's, they talk from one hand and from the other, but the government is so corrupt in Canada because it's all tied to the British and the federal, banking system, the central banking system. It's all tied to the Federal Reserve and everything. Projects were shelved. Alberta Oil had to rely on the US as a customer, and now the very sorts who created or supported the situation now want to tax the oil going to the States. But on this day, Premier Danielle Smith said enough is enough. Yeah, she's upset. So now they also mentioned, remember I did a video of the germanium and gallium and the antimony, which is the 51st mineral, well, periodic table element. And they blocked that from coming from China. So they're mentioning that here now. Wilkinson said that these are chances for both countries to put money towards projects to produce more minerals in a way that displaces supplies currently provided by China. He also said the countries can collaborate to increase uranium supplies, to wean themselves off purchases from Russia, and to enhance the flow of crude oil from Alberta into the United States to help Trump achieve his goal of energy dominance. So some people are saying, let's just work with the United States. Let's just be like the kind of like a European Union kind of thing where we're like working together and we're not like being taken over, but Trump's like helping with our military side, but then we have minerals, let's just all work together. But Trump's going to put huge tariffs on because he wants the banks to collapse. That's what's going on. Okay, so the Monroe Doctrine, is all about not allowing European countries to colonize expansion into North America. Okay. And there's a little comic here of how the Monroe Doctrine is like, you're not allowed, you guys are not allowed to come over here. So the British ruling Canada, okay, Canada being part of the Confederation, it shouldn't really even be legally allowed because of this Monroe Doctrine. That's why Trump was kind of talking about that. And here's Donald Jr. in Greenland with all the people with MAGA hats greeting him. I think it's hilarious. Okay, so let's go into the Monroe Doctrine here. President James Monroe first articulated the doctrine on December 2nd, 1823, during his 7th annual State of Union address to Congress. Okay, Monroe asserted that the New World and the Old World will remain distinctly separate spheres of influence. Yeah, they just didn't want the Britons over here. But at the time, the U.S., because it was a young nation, didn't have really good military. So Great Britain shared the general objective of the Monroe Doctrine. They went along with it, and even wanted to declare a joint statement to keep other European powers from further colonizing the New World. So, France can't go over there and Spain and all that. And the British feared their trade with the New World would be harmed if any other European powers further colonized it. In fact, for many years after the doctrine took effect, Britain, through the Royal Navy, it's always the Royal Navy, was the sole nation enforcing it, and the U.S. lacking significant naval capability. The U.S. resisted a joint statement because of a recent memory of the War of 1812. This was all to do with Montreal. However, the immediate provocation was with Russia, UCAS of 1821, asserting rights to the Pacific Northwest. So here we go up to the Pacific Northwest now, all regarding with Russia, and forbidding non-Russian ships from approaching the coast. So Russian ships are allowed to go up there, but non-Russian ships are not. Okay, so this is like, that's why the Chinese are being up there is not cool. And then the Chinese coming through the Panama Canal is not cool either. That's what Trump doesn't like. So in 1902, the Canadian Prime Minister Wilfrid Laurier acknowledged that the Monroe Doctrine was essential to his country's protection. The doctrine provided Canada with a de facto security guarantee by the United States and the U.S. Navy in the Pacific. and the British Navy in the Atlantic, made invading North America almost impossible. Because of the peaceful relations between the two countries, Canada could assist Britain in a European war without having to defend itself at home. So there you go. This is all going back, way back to the turn of the century. It's crazy. But this is why he's talking about all this stuff. And everything he mentions, you have to like, you think, oh, he just talks nonsense. He's like a crazy man, crazy orange man. But everything he says has a meaning. And the way he says it is so that it kind of makes you think like, what the heck is he talking about? But then you realize it's all clues. Like it's just like clues because by dripping it into the consciousness, okay, it eventually gets strength behind it because people start to catch on and then we create it to happen. That's how it works because it's the population. They always have to have the population support for things to go forward. So by brainwashing people on the TV with Walter Cronkite coming on and talking about the hostages, that's all to get the public support, right? That's how they make things happen. It's all by public support. But by dripping it out slowly, and then people like us talking about it, it ends up changing the script, right? Because it doesn't get the public support of what the media is trying to make happen. Okay, so it's all kind of how it works. So then there's this Tortoja Carter Treaties. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. On September 7th, 1977, was superseded by the original 1903 treaty. And this was all to do with the Panama Canal now, okay? Panama Canal, sorry. The treaties guaranteed that the Panama would gain control of the Panama Canal after 1999, ending the control of the canal, and the U.S. had exercised since 1903. So the U.S. was down there. They basically were in the canal zone area, and they were living there, and then when all this was going on with this riot with these kids with the flag, they ended up, feeling bad because all these kids got shot. And then they kind of said, well, we have to do something now, and we have to allow them to have control of the canal. But in the end, they knew that that was going to break the Monroe Doctrine, right? So because it's like people aren't allowed to just come around North America from other countries. They're not allowed. It's like it's part of that doctrine. So the treaties are named after the two signatories of U.S. President Jimmy Carter and General Omar Torrijos. Not saying it right. Okay, so now in 1964, this was a breakdown of the relations between the US and Panama. And this was just after Kennedy was shot. Okay, Kennedy wanted the flag, the US flag and the Panama Canal flags be flying in the canal zone, both of them together. Okay, but then it never happened because he got killed. And so because it never happened, the kids did this uprising, and then that's what caused all this. Okay, so and that's how basically the US lost control of the Panama Canal that they built with taxpayers' money. So the Panama flag next to the American flag per 1963 agreement to diffuse tension between the two countries. Okay, and this was all done. Kennedy was supposed to do that. The Panamanians watching the event began rioting after students raising the Panamanian flag were jeered and harassed by the American school officials, students, and their parents. So during the scuffle, somehow, the Panamanian flag was torn, and that's what caused all this. They tore the Panamanian flag, and that was the end of it. Widespread rioting ensured, during which over 20 Panamanians were killed. I think I read somewhere else it was 21 or 22, and about 500 were injured. Doesn't surprise me that it's 22 or put it as 22 because of the 22 tarot cards, major tarot cards. Most of the casualties were caused by fire from U.S. troops who had been called in to protect the Canal Zone property, including private residence of the Canal Zone employees, which is all basically military people. January 9th is a national holiday for Panama known as the Martyrs' Day. So all these kids died for their flag. So U.S. President John F. Kennedy agreed to fly the flag. Yeah, that's what I said. And then the governor ordered, infuriated many Zonians. Zonians were the Americans who interpreted it was a U.S. renunciation of sovereignty over the canal zone. So basically, by allowing the Panama people to fly the flag there, it's like they were losing control of the canal zone. Okay, and it all started in the Balboa High School. Okay, this is very important. A public high school in the Canal Zone was taken down by school officials, and students walked out of class, raised another flag, the U.S. flag, and posted guards to prevent its removal. Most zoning adults sympathized with the student demonstrators. So all the parents, the U.S. parents and everything, they were like, okay, you want to raise the American flag, go for it. And then that's, yeah, kind of how it happened. And now, yeah, here they're saying there was 22 that died. Yeah, it's over here. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened. So, but this school was like a military school almost, the Balboa School. Some reporters allege that one giant communist plot with Christian Democrats, socialist students, government leaders, and a host of others controlled by the hand of Fidel Castro. Now, all that went down because of Fidel Castro. And you guys know that Justin Trudeau's father is most likely this guy, right? So however it seems that the Panama economists were caught up by the surprise of the outbreak of violence that commanded and the allegiance of only a small minority of those who rioted on the Day of the Martyrs. So this was a whole CIA, you know, this was all provoked, okay? So there were conflicting claims about how the flag was torn. There was also claims that the CIA had fomented the whole situation. Okay, so now who was head of the CIA at that time? Was George Bush Sr., right? That's who was head of the CIA when Kennedy was shot. So yeah, and so yeah, it's just crazy. So they actually had, I don't know, I missed that slide. Where they talk about the school. Yeah, I think it's here in the basement. Yeah, they had a shooting range in the Balboa High School, and in the basement there. So they were military kids. They were being trained to be like, military people. Okay, so for most of the Canal Zone's history, Balboa High School rivaled with the Atlantic side Cristobal High School, later the Cristobal Senior High School. Balboa High School and had two mascots, the Red Machine for students with last names from A to K, had red and white as their team colors, and students with their last names from L to Z had the bulldog as a mascot, and their team colors were light blue and white. So there you got the red and the blue, American. The Balboa High School varsity football team played against the other high school, right? So they were always battling each other. Okay, so no wonder, it was just the kids kind of getting patriotic and going crazy. But that's why the United States doesn't have control of the Panama Canal right now. It's all because of those kids. Okay, so now Balboa, this is, they keep bringing up this high school where this all happened. Balboa was actually a Spanish explorer who in 1513 crossed the Isthmus Darien and became the first European to see the eastern shores of the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so now his history, you guys can go dig on that. It was crazy. Like, he was a poor man. He came over, and he was an explorer, and then he ends up I don't know, getting put in a barrel with some dogs and hiding in there for a while. And then, he overthrows the people that was controlling the city. And then, I don't know, it's just crazy. And then he ends up getting beheaded. Okay, but he's very famous. Okay, a lot of places are named after him. Of course, in Panama City, obviously, Balboa, the Pacific entrance to the Panama Canal, the Balboa district, and then even in San Francisco, U.S. Balboa name appears among the rows of avenues, which are named after Spanish conquistadors, and the Balboa Park neighborhood. Um, in San Diego as well too. There's stamps. There's a lunar crater named after him. There's an order that you can to do with the Law 27, which is basically kind of like pull the wools over people's eyes kind of thing, from 28th of January 1933. So January 28th, we need to keep an eye on this date because this might be all tied to Balboa. And now, you know, um, you guys know Rocky Balboa, the movie, right? So, and I'm like, oh my God, like Sylvester Stallone has been really hanging around Trump lately. And then I'm like, I go to look up this movie and he's got the fist in the air. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Okay. He's an actor. He's an actor. Okay. They're both acting. They're just playing their parts, guys. Okay. And, they've been friends for a long time. So as I'm putting this video together, and I'm putting these pictures, slides together to talk to you about this. I look at the news, boom, today. Trump names Mel Gibson, John Watt, and Sylvester Stallone as Hollywood special ambassadors. It's a joke. It really is. It's a joke. I'm laughing almost every day. Okay, so Forbes magazine. Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit into this whole thing with Elon Musk and the quantum computing, and the banks, okay? Because I think Trump is going to collapse the Federal Reserve, and he's going to do it first by collapsing the central banks in Canada. I mean, really digging on this a lot, okay? Now, the whole quantum computer thing, okay, is they're pushing hard. Like Elon's got his whole thing going there in, I think it's Minnesota. He's got his big giant quantum computer. It's all set up. They got it set up in like 2 months or something. Um, O'Leary's making one in Alberta. So it's all about quantum computing. Now, I don't know if you know anything about it, but most computers are just run by binary ones and zeros. And it's either one side zero, one side one, right? So quantum computing is like a coin, but instead of it being flat on its back, it's like on its edge and it's spinning. So the computer can work twice as fast because it can see both sides at the same time, kind of thing. So these computers are so quick that if somebody hacks them, um, they can probably get access to the central banks. And they're very concerned about this. Even Forbes magazine did an article on it. So our latest Quantum Alliance Initiative study shows that despite the many benefits that quantum computing will eventually bring to our economy and our financial sector in particular, the numbers show that the impact of a cascading quantum attack on major banks, the Federal Reserve, and our stock exchanges and derivative exchanges could be calamitous for the United States and a global economy, comparable of even worse than the Great Depression. Okay, so yeah, that's what I think is going to go down because they're telling us it's already going to happen. Okay, I'm not just making this up; it's there. It's in the realm. So our studies conclude that decline could be 2 to 3.3 trillions in direct losses. So basically, if a quantum computer hacker gets in there and gets the codes, because what happens is the quantum computer, if it sees an error, it's moving so fast it can take like weeks for it to figure out that it was an error because the way it is, it doesn't look like an error. Okay, so then they're saying that they need to protect their banking system before any of this happens, okay? And which legacy cybersecurity systems need to be not just patched, but completely replaced. The migration timeline will take almost as long as the timeline to the imminent quantum decryption threat. by then it will be too late. So it's basically they're saying they can't even secure it. It's like even if they start working on it today, because the quantum computing is happening so fast. Okay, and this threat that they're talking about is called Y2Q. Okay, um, of course it's Q, and the quantum threat is coming much sooner than you think. Okay, so I was listening to this, and they're talking about here that they believe the arrival date is April 14th, 2030. But I watched another video today and they said it's even maybe in 2029. Okay, so 2029, my book was really tuned into that year. Okay, if you want to know why, you can go check it out and understand the moon code that repeats itself in large pieces of time. There's a code that happens with the moon. Okay, and I'm pretty convinced like things are going to get crazy by 2029. And it's probably a lot to do with this, what's going to be happening, and the whole collapse of the banking system, which is not going to be good because it's going to be chaotic, right, for people. You can't get into your banks, you know, it's like, um, yeah. So, World Economic Forum warns that the quantum computing threat to central bank digital currencies. So, how they're doing it, um, it's going through the crypto because to buy crypto, you need to have a tax-free savings account with a central bank. And I have my banking with the Quebec bank, and they don't do crypto because they had a security breach a couple of years ago. So I guess they don't want to do crypto. It's the crypto that's causing the hackers to be able to get in and decode, okay? And then they can kind of actually, if you buy something with crypto, they can buy something again with the same money that you bought with, you know, like they can kind of like duplicate it. So there's all this kind of fraud going on. But anyhow, they're basically saying it's going to be happening like sooner than later. So this is what you kind of gotta, this is why I'm doing this video, is just to give you a heads up. I know it's not all about astrology, but we need to prepare for what's coming because I do feel awakened souls need to know what's going to happen before the general public so that we can kind of ground people and help people prepare, right? So now I'm with this bank. I have both banks, but the Desjardins Bank. This is a Quebec bank. It's a co-op bank, and it doesn't belong to the central bank, so it won't crash. Okay, they've just updated all their security. Desjardins means the garden. Okay, so this is Quebec, right? It's a Quebec bank. It has a few branches in Ontario as well, but it's very Eastern Canada. Now, what I didn't realize, one of my supporters sent me this, that Montreal, here I am living, you know, in Montreal, and I didn't know it was already a smart city. I'm so silly. I know that they're changing a lot of the city, and like they're trying to get rid of cars in the city. They've created new train, the REM train line. They've created like the outskirts of Montreal, even off the island. It's still considered the whole range of Montreal. They're creating bike lanes everywhere. They don't want people in cars anymore. So yeah, the Desjardins banking is what Hydro-Quebec is with. Okay, so it's better to be with that type of bank. If you can have a co-op union bank or something, you'd be better off to have your funds than that, because I do think central banks are going to have like a nasty ride. And I think that's all part of this game because Trump wants the Federal Reserve to collapse, and he can't just go after it on his own because he'll be attacked. So he's going to do it through the quantum computing that Elon Musk is in charge of. Okay, so I know you can see Elon Musk as being like a terrible person because he's all into AI and everything, but it's also part of changing the the order of the guards. Okay, it's kind of like, in a way I see it, is that like he says, AI is not evil. It depends on who's running it. Okay, but I don't think he's evil. I think he's just giving a path for people in case they want to go into the matrix forever, you know, with their memory. I do think he's talked about that you can control or retain people's memory. That's why you have an avatar on Facebook and everything. You know, you have all your memories is in there, and they can download that and save it. right? So it's like you can be born again, but through AI. That I don't believe is ascension. I think it's a fake ascension, and people will go that way. I think it's almost like he says it's a demon that we're conjuring up through the quantum computer, okay? Because it's getting so smart, we don't even have control of it, okay? But that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's kind of how it is. And then the quantum computer can actually make a whole other, it can open up portals to another alternate universe that's identical to ours. Okay, so it's really like beyond our understanding. Okay, and I think they're also scared of it too. They said that one of the computers was doing stuff that Elon shut it down. He just like turned it off. He doesn't want anybody, because the computer's getting too advanced. They don't even know what it's doing. Okay, so it's getting like crazy. But that's our reality. If it's going to open up a portal, I guess they need to time it right, right? If that's what's going to happen. And then maybe some souls will go one way, some will go the other. That's kind of where I'm at now. But we need to understand in our daily life what's going on. Okay, so yeah, Montreal had won $50 million from a competition, and yeah, it was Smart City, like named Smart City 7 years ago. Who would know? They didn't put it in the news. They don't want people to know, right? So they're saying here, challenge statement. They did a challenge in Montreal. One, Montreal community is shaping an efficient and dynamic neighborhood life by innovating mobility and access to food. They're doing all organic food around the city, so we don't have to bring food in from other places like southern states and stuff where it's really expensive. So through a co-creation, the citizen participation process, the accessibility of services and well-being of Montrealers are increasing significantly. So they believe that it's going to get better over time, and I just want to put this out here because it's kind of a segue to my next video. Montreal, the White City, okay? It's always about the Alabaster City, and I'm going to do a video on that. And this is Notre Dame Cathedral in Montreal. In my book, I explain who these three figures are, and this all has to do with the oil, the secretion going up in your brain. Yeah, I think it's, yeah, well, you just need to get my book to understand all this stuff. But the white tree in front of it, very significant. Okay, so anyhow, I hope that gives you guys some guidance. I know it's helped me to have a lot more joy in what's going on. Like, I'm not stressing that our economy is going to crash in Canada. I'm actually like looking forward to it because it just means that things are moving in a direction that I believe is healthier than what we're doing. So, yeah, it's all about being prepared, guys. So, yeah, please like and subscribe and leave me a little comment if you can, or just a thumbs up or something, because I put so much time into this stuff and I'm like, is this really helping people? Like, I don't know. And I know a lot of you support my work and stuff, but I just feel so many people are in different pockets of reality right now. And I just kind of wish people could just see it as a whole, and not seeing it as sides, who's the good guys and bad guys, because we're in charge, right? We're in charge. It's where we put our energy. And I think humanity in general, um, it wants to function from helping and giving, right? And this is the best way I know how to give and help back into my community. And yeah, so I know not a lot of people are where I'm at in my head, but I do think it's pretty obvious that something's going on, right? And, it's kind of exciting. Like Trump says, it's the golden age. So I do believe that. I do believe we're coming into the golden age. And, if it takes a quantum computer to get us there through a portal, okay, let's see where that goes. Maybe it takes all the bad people out. I don't know. Just leaves us here. Who knows? I don't know. But that's all for us to find out. So take care, guys. Bliss to you all, and I'll do another video soon. I'm trying to keep them shorter, get through them a little quicker. Take care. Bye.